The millionaire husband refused public touch until he saw his secretary with another man. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Ethan Cole stands beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Avalon Grand Ballroom, where the air smells faintly of polished marble and expensive cologne, and where every guest seems to glide rather than walk, dressed in tailored suits and gowns that whisper money before a single word is spoken. As CEO of Cole Holdings, Ethan is no stranger to rooms like this. He owns them, controls them, bends them to his will. Tonight's gala celebrates a billion-dollar merger, cameras lining the red carpet outside, reporters calling his name, flashes popping like distant fireworks. At his side stands Claire Monroe, his wife in title, his secretary by profession, and the woman the world believes he chose for love. She looks flawless in a simple ivory dress that cost less than the cufflinks on Ethan's sleeves, her posture calm, her smile precise, every movement practiced to perfection. What no one sees is the space between them, the careful inches Ethan maintains, as if an invisible line has been drawn on the floor. When photographers shout for them to get closer, to smile together, to show a little affection, Ethan places a courteous hand on the small of Claire's back for half a second, then lets it fall away before it can linger. He never holds her hand, never interlaces fingers, never leans in. The tabloids call it mysterious restraint, a powerful man protecting his private life, but Claire knows the truth, because she signed it in ink on a quiet afternoon months ago. No public affection, no unnecessary touch, no confusion between business and intimacy. The contract was clear, clinical, as cold as the glass-walled boardroom where Ethan slid it across the table and asked her to read carefully. Claire remembers how steady his voice sounded, how controlled, how he never once looked at her hands as they trembled while turning the pages. She remembers thinking it would be easier if he were cruel, easier if he were arrogant or dismissive, but Ethan Cole had been polite, respectful, and completely unreachable. Tonight, as donors and executives circle them with congratulations, Claire answers questions with grace, deflects praise toward Ethan, laughs at the right moments, and absorbs the curious glances from socialites who wonder why the richest man in the room treats his wife like a distant colleague. Each time someone congratulates Ethan on his marriage, he nods once, tight-lipped, while Claire keeps smiling, because smiling is part of her job, just like managing his schedule, organizing his life, and protecting his image. The band begins to play a slow jazz number, couples drifting toward the dance floor, and for a brief moment Claire wonders what it would feel like to be pulled into that light, to rest her hand against Ethan's shoulder, to exist not as a clause in a contract, but as a woman chosen. She does not move. Ethan does not ask. Instead, he checks his watch, scans the room with the sharp focus of a man assessing risk, and turns slightly away from her as another investor approaches. From the outside, they look impeccable, untouchable, a power couple carved from marble. From the inside, Claire feels the familiar ache settle quietly in her chest, the kind that comes from standing inches away from someone who has promised you everything except himself. After the gala ends and the last guests drift into waiting town cars, Claire sits alone in the back of a black sedan, the city lights sliding past the tinted windows like distant constellations. Ethan rides in silence beside her, scrolling through emails as if the night never happened, as if the inches between them do not exist. This distance did not begin tonight. It began months earlier, in a smaller room with no chandeliers and no cameras, where Claire Monroe first learned what it meant to marry a man like Ethan Cole. Back then, she was still his executive secretary, arriving at the office before sunrise, leaving long after dark, memorizing his routines the way some people memorize prayers. She knew how he took his coffee, black with no sugar, how he disliked small talk, how he trusted very few people and tested everyone else. She also knew what it meant to be cornered by life with no easy exits. Her mother's medical bills had been stacking up for years, each envelope heavier than the last, and the student loans she carried felt like chains she dragged behind her every morning. When Ethan called her into his office that afternoon, she expected another impossible deadline or a crisis to manage. Instead, he closed the door, sat across from her, and told her he needed a wife. Not for love, not for companionship, for stability, for optics, for a board that wanted to see a settled man at the top. He laid out the offer with the same precision he used in mergers and acquisitions: a 2-year marriage contract, generous compensation, full coverage for her family's expenses, and complete discretion. He also laid out the rules. No emotional expectations, no personal demands. In one line he emphasized twice: no public displays of affection. Claire remembers the weight of the pen in her hand when she signed. Remembers thinking how strange it was that the decision that would change her life forever was made in complete silence. She told herself it was temporary, that she was strong enough to keep her heart separate, that this was just another role to play, only bigger. Over time, the role consumed everything. She learned how to stand beside Ethan at meetings without reaching for him, how to answer questions about their marriage without revealing anything real, how to smile while feeling invisible. At home, the penthouse felt more like a hotel suite than a place meant for living. 2 bedrooms, 2 schedules, 2 lives moving parallel but never touching. Ethan was never unkind. He was distant, controlled, careful, as if proximity itself carried a risk he refused to take. Claire sometimes wondered what had taught him to fear closeness so deeply, but she never asked. Asking was not part of the contract. Tonight, as the car stops at a red light, Ethan finally looks up from his phone and glances at her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, it feels like he might say something, like the silence might break. Instead, he simply asks if she is tired, his voice polite, professional. Claire nods and says she is fine, because that is the safest answer, because fine is what he expects. Inside, though, the question echoes differently. She is tired of being composed, tired of standing inches away from a man who calls her his wife yet treats her like a boundary he cannot cross. She is tired of wondering whether the rules protect him from her or protect him from himself. As the light turns green and the car moves forward, Claire looks out at the city and reminds herself why she agreed to this in the first place. She made a choice to survive, to help her family, to secure a future she could not reach on her own. She tells herself feelings are a luxury she can afford later, that 2 years will pass quickly. She does not know yet that something has already shifted, that the careful balance Ethan relies on will soon be tested, and that the distance he insists on maintaining will become the very thing he can no longer control. The following weeks settle into a precise rhythm that feels both efficient and quietly exhausting, the kind of routine that leaves no room for mistakes or emotions. Every morning, Claire wakes before the sun rises, moving through the penthouse with practiced silence, careful not to disturb Ethan even though he is already awake most days, dressed and reviewing market reports at the kitchen island as if sleep were optional. They exchange polite greetings, brief updates about the day, nothing that could be mistaken for intimacy. To the outside world, they are seamless. Inside the office, Claire transitions effortlessly from wife to executive secretary, managing meetings, handling crises, anticipating Ethan's needs before he voices them. She sits across from him in conference rooms filled with men and women twice her age, never flinching when they question her presence, never revealing that she knows Ethan's schedule better than anyone else in the building. She becomes his shield, deflecting rumors, smoothing investor concerns, presenting a calm, united image that strengthens his position. Ethan notices this more than he admits. He watches how she handles pressure, how she remains composed when others falter, how her quiet competence earns respect without demanding it. At times, he catches himself looking at her longer than necessary, studying the way she focuses, the slight crease between her brows when she concentrates. When that happens, he pulls back immediately, reminding himself of the rules he wrote, the boundaries that keep everything under control. He tells himself it is easier this way, safer. Public events continue, one after another, charity luncheons, board dinners, industry conferences across the country. Claire stands beside him through all of it, answering questions about their marriage with gentle deflections, offering smiles that never quite reach her eyes. She becomes used to the way people look at them, curious, skeptical, fascinated by the mystery of a billionaire who never touches his wife. Some nights, After long days, she returns to her room and sits on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, letting the silence settle. She reminds herself that this is temporary, that the benefits are real, that her mother's treatments are covered, that the weight she carried for years has finally lifted. Still, there are moments that test her resolve. Like the afternoon Ethan falls ill from exhaustion and she brings him water, instinctively reaching out to steady him when he sways. He stiffens instantly, stepping back as if burned, murmuring that he is fine. The apology in his eyes is brief but unmistakable. Or the night a storm knocks out the city's power, and they find themselves in the same room, lit only by the glow of emergency lights, speaking quietly about nothing at all until the moment stretches too long and Ethan excuses himself. Claire begins to realize that the rules protect him more than they protect her. She sees the tension in his shoulders when someone gets too close, the way his jaw tightens at casual touches he cannot control. It makes her wonder what taught him that distance equals safety and closeness equals loss. She never crosses the line, never asks the questions that form in her mind, because she knows the cost of breaking an agreement. Yet somewhere between shared schedules and silent dinners, something shifts. The arrangement remains intact on paper, but beneath the surface, the balance feels fragile, as if one unexpected moment could tip everything they have so carefully constructed into something neither of them is prepared to face. Time begins to blur into a montage of moments that define Claire's transformation from an invisible assistant into the quiet anchor of Ethan's public life, and she feels it happening even as she tells herself to remain detached. Invitations arrive daily, embossed envelopes announcing fundraisers, conferences, and private dinners, and Claire manages every detail with the same calm precision she applies to board agendas. She learns which designers photograph well under harsh lights, which charities Ethan's board favors, which donors expect a personal acknowledgement. She becomes fluent in a world she never imagined entering, standing beneath chandeliers and beside power brokers without ever forgetting where she came from. At each event, she takes her place at Ethan's side, half a step behind or beside him depending on protocol, always aware of the invisible boundary he maintains. When she reaches for his arm instinctively as they navigate crowded rooms, she catches herself and withdraws, replacing the gesture with a polite nod or a measured smile. Ethan notices these moments, the way she corrects herself without complaint, and something unsettles him. He tells himself it is respect for the agreement, that she understands the necessity of control, yet he cannot ignore how seamlessly she supports him, how she anticipates potential crises and diffuses them before they surface. During a tense charity board dinner, when a major donor questions Ethan's leadership, it is Claire who intervenes smoothly, reframing the conversation, reminding everyone of the company's long-term vision. Ethan watches the room shift in real time, admiration flickering through him before he suppresses it. At home, the penthouse remains quiet, almost reverent. They share meals occasionally, discussing schedules and logistics, nothing personal, yet the silence between sentences grows heavier. Some nights, Ethan hears Claire moving through the kitchen late, preparing documents for the next day, and he pauses outside the doorway, listening, resisting the urge to step inside. Claire senses his presence without turning, her shoulders tensing, then relaxing when he walks away. She tells herself not to imagine what it would be like if he stayed. The public sees a flawless partnership, but privately, Claire begins to feel the cost of perfection. She attends fittings alone, practices answers to intrusive questions alone, returns from events alone. Still, she never falters. Her confidence grows, not because of the title she carries, but because she realizes she is capable of standing in these rooms on her own merit. That realization changes the way she carries herself, and Ethan notices the difference. He sees it when she speaks, when she holds her ground with senior executives, when she no longer seeks his approval with her eyes. It unsettles him more than any market fluctuation ever has. At a high-profile conference in Chicago, as they stand before a sea of cameras, Claire delivers a brief remark on behalf of the company, her voice steady, her presence commanding. Applause fills the room, and for a split second, Ethan forgets the rule about distance. His hand lifts, then stops midair, hovering before he lowers it again. Claire feels the movement beside her and keeps her gaze forward, though her pulse quickens. In that suspended moment, both of them understand something unspoken has changed. Claire is no longer just playing a role to survive. She is becoming someone who could walk away if she chose. And Ethan, for the first time, senses that the control he values so deeply might be slipping, not because of a threat from outside, but because of the woman standing quietly beside him, growing stronger with every step she takes without his touch. Late one evening, after another long day that stretches past midnight, the penthouse settles into an unusual stillness, the kind that hums softly rather than rests. Claire remains in the study, reviewing contracts and schedules spread neatly across the desk, her eyes heavy but focused, determined to finish before allowing herself sleep. She does not hear Ethan enter at first, only senses the change in the air when he stops a few feet away. He watches her quietly, the glow from the desk lamp casting soft shadows across her face. And for the first time in weeks, he does not interrupt with a question or a request. Claire finally looks up, startled, apologizing out of habit, and begins to gather the papers as if she has done something wrong. Ethan tells her to stop, his voice lower than usual, not sharp, not commanding, simply tired. He says she has done enough for one night. The words linger between them, unfamiliar in their gentleness. Claire hesitates, then sits back down, unsure how to respond. The silence that follows is different from their usual pauses, heavier, charged with things neither has said. Ethan notices the faint dark circles beneath her eyes, the way she rubs her temples when she thinks he is not looking, and something tightens in his chest. He asks when she last took a full day off. Claire thinks for a moment, then admits she cannot remember. The honesty slips out before she can soften it. Ethan exhales slowly, as if absorbing the weight of that answer, and admits that he relies on her more than he should. It is the closest he has come to vulnerability since they signed a contract. Claire does not smile. She simply nods, acknowledging the truth without reaching for it. For a moment, they talk about nothing important, the weather, an upcoming trip, a delayed flight, and yet the conversation feels more intimate than any public appearance they have made together. When Claire stands to leave, exhaustion finally catching up to her, she sways slightly. Instinctively, Ethan reaches out to steady her. His hand closes gently around her arm, firm and warm, and for a brief second, neither of them moves. The contact is innocent, practical, but it sends a jolt through both of them, a reminder of everything they have been avoiding. Ethan releases her immediately, stepping back as if crossing an invisible line, his jaw tightening as he murmurs an apology that sounds almost pained. Claire assures him she is fine, though her heart is racing now, not from fatigue, but from the awareness of how quickly that moment could have become something else. She retreats to her room, closing the door quietly behind her, and leans against it, pressing a hand to her chest as she steadies her breath. On the other side of the wall, Ethan stands alone in the dimly lit hallway, staring at his hand as if it no longer belongs to him. He tells himself it was a reflex, nothing more, yet he cannot ignore the fact that for that split second, the rules felt unnecessary, even suffocating. That night, sleep comes slowly to both of them. Claire lies awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the brief touch and wondering how something so small could feel so significant. Ethan sits in his office long after the city outside has gone dark, confronting a realization he has been carefully avoiding. The distance he has enforced no longer feels like protection. It feels like a loss he is actively choosing. Neither of them says anything the next morning, returning to their routine with practiced ease. But beneath the surface, the balance has shifted again. The line between business and emotion, once so clearly defined, has begun to blur, and both of them know that once crossed, it cannot simply be redrawn. The shift comes quietly at first, disguised as an ordinary request on an otherwise packed schedule. When Claire asks Ethan for a single evening off, her tone professional but firm. She explains she has a personal commitment. She cannot reschedule, nothing that affects his calendar or the company. Ethan agrees without hesitation, surprising himself with how easily the words come out. Yet the moment she leaves his office, an unfamiliar restlessness settles in. That evening, an unexpected meeting runs late, and Ethan leaves the office alone, the city already glowing under streetlights. On his way home, he passes a familiar restaurant near the financial district, an understated place favored by attorneys and consultants. Through the wide glass windows, movement catches his attention, and he slows without meaning to. Inside, seated at a corner table, is Claire. She is not in one of her tailored dresses or neutral heels. She wears something softer, simpler, her hair pulled back loosely, her posture relaxed in a way Ethan has never seen. Across from her sits a man Ethan does not recognize at first, leaning forward as he speaks, his expression open, attentive. When the man smiles, Claire laughs, not the controlled smile she offers donors and executives, but something genuine, unguarded. Ethan stops walking entirely. He tells himself there is nothing wrong with this scene, that Claire is entitled to a life beyond contracts and obligations. Yet his chest tightens as he watches the man reach across the table to slide a glass of water closer to her. The gesture is casual, considerate. When Claire thanks him, her eyes soften, and for reasons Ethan cannot immediately name, that small moment feels like a violation of something he did not realize he claimed. He watches as the man stands to put on his coat, then drapes it over the back of Claire's chair when she shivers slightly. She looks up at him with quiet gratitude, and Ethan feels a sharp, unfamiliar surge of emotion rise before he can stop it. Jealousy is not a feeling he is accustomed to. He has always believed emotions should be managed like assets, risks mitigated before they grow volatile. Yet standing on the sidewalk, unseen, he realizes he has no strategy for this. He turns away abruptly, continuing toward his car, his thoughts racing faster than market swings ever have. All the rules he created suddenly feel inadequate, unable to explain why the image of Claire with another man unsettles him so deeply. That night, Ethan sleeps poorly, replaying the scene again and again, each detail etched with uncomfortable clarity. He wonders who the man is, how long Claire has known him, what she shares with him that she has never shared with Ethan. By morning, the restlessness has hardened into something sharper, more dangerous. At the office, Claire behaves as she always does, efficient, composed, entirely professional. She briefs him on the day ahead, unaware of the storm behind his eyes. Ethan watches her closely now, noticing every smile, every moment she looks away. When she mentions an upcoming charity event that evening, one he had planned to attend alone, Ethan interrupts her. He tells her she will accompany him. The words come out more forcefully than intended, and Claire pauses, surprised, before nodding. As she leaves the room, Ethan realizes he has made a decision driven not by logic or image, but by something raw and untested. For the first time since the contract was signed, he feels the fragile order he built slipping beyond his control, and he knows that whatever happens next will no longer be governed by rules alone. The charity event unfolds under a canopy of white lights and glass walls overlooking the river, the kind of evening designed to be photographed from every angle, and Ethan arrives with a resolve that surprises even him. Claire steps out of the car beside him, elegant and composed, and before she can position herself at the practiced distance, Ethan reaches for her hand. The contact is unmistakable, deliberate, and public, his fingers closing around hers with a certainty that sends a ripple through the gathered crowd. Cameras pivot instantly, shutters firing, murmurs rising as people exchange glances, sensing the shift. Claire freezes for a fraction of a second, then looks up at him, searching his face for explanation. Ethan does not release her. He guides her forward through the entrance, his hands steady, his posture squared, as if claiming ground he once refused to stand on. Inside, conversations falter and restart, donors leaning in to catch the moment, reporters whispering updates into discreet microphones. Claire feels the warmth of his grip, the pressure grounding and startling all at once, and she steadies her breath, matching his pace. When a board member approaches to congratulate them, Ethan draws Claire closer instead of stepping away, his arm resting protectively at her side without hesitation. The gesture is simple, restrained, yet it carries more weight than any speech he could deliver. Claire answers questions with calm grace, but her heart races, the sudden intimacy forcing her to reconcile months of distance with seconds of closeness. As they move through the room, Ethan's attention remains fixed, scanning faces, until he spots a familiar figure near the bar. It is the man from the restaurant, the one who made Claire laugh, now standing with colleagues and glancing toward the couple with polite recognition. Ethan's jaw tightens, but he does not look away. He turns slightly, angling Claire toward him, and lowers his voice just enough to be heard by her alone. He asks who the man is, the words controlled, yet edged with something raw he has never allowed to surface. Claire meets his gaze, surprised by the intensity, and answers truthfully that he is an old friend, a lawyer she has known for years, nothing more. The explanation should be enough, and yet Ethan feels the truth land heavier than expected. He realizes the discomfort was never about betrayal. It was about possibility, the possibility that Claire's life could continue fully without him. When the host calls for a brief acknowledgement from the stage, Ethan steps forward with Claire still at his side. He thanks the donors, speaks about responsibility and trust, and then, without planning to, references his wife, crediting her support and judgment as essential to his work. Applause swells, and in that sound, Claire hears something new, recognition that goes beyond role or obligation. As they step down, Ethan does not let go. He keeps her close, answering questions, enduring the flashes, choosing presence over distance. Claire feels the eyes on them, feels the narrative shifting, and understands this moment cannot be undone. Later, as the evening winds down and the crowd thins, Ethan finally releases her hand, but the space between them feels different now, charged with questions neither has asked yet. The rules have been broken in plain sight, and the world has noticed. More importantly, so have they, and both sense that the next conversation will determine whether this was a single act born of jealousy or the beginning of something neither can control any longer. The drive back to the penthouse passes in silence, the city reflecting off the windshield in streaks of light that mirror the tension neither of them addresses. When the doors close behind them and the quiet settles, Claire finally turns to Ethan, her composure intact, but her voice steady with resolve. She tells him what happened tonight cannot be ignored, that the rules they agreed to were broken in front of everyone, and that she needs to understand why. Ethan listens without interrupting, his expression guarded, then exhales slowly as if releasing a weight he has carried for years. He tells her the truth in measured words, that public touch was never about control over her, but about control over himself. He explains that closeness makes him feel exposed, that every time he allows someone near, he remembers how quickly trust can become loss, how attachment once cost him more than he was prepared to give. Claire absorbs this, recognizing the fear beneath his precision, yet she does not soften her stance. She tells him she agreed to the contract because she needed stability, not because she agreed to disappear, and that tonight, when he took her hand, it felt less like protection and more like possession without permission. The words land hard, and Ethan does not deflect them. He admits he felt threatened when he saw her with another man, not because she violated any agreement, but because he realized she did not need him to live fully. He says the jealousy shocked him, forced him to confront the fact that the boundaries he created have been hurting them both. Claire steps back, meeting his gaze, and tells him she has never asked for more than honesty. She says she has carried his image, his schedule, his expectations, and that she has done it well, but she will not continue in a marriage that exists only when it suits appearances. The room feels smaller as the truth settles between them. Ethan looks at the contract folder resting on the side table, the same one he once relied on for certainty, and admits that he no longer believes it can protect him from what he feels. He tells her that tonight was not a strategy, that taking her hand was instinct, fear, and desire colliding in a moment he could not calculate away. Claire listens, her expression unreadable, then tells him she needs clarity more than gestures. She asks whether he sees her as a partner or a problem to manage. Ethan answers without hesitation that she is his partner, that her strength has become integral to his life in ways he did not anticipate. He admits he is afraid of what comes next, afraid of wanting something real after so long hiding behind structure and rules. The honesty shifts something fundamental. Claire tells him she will not be held by fear, that if this marriage is to continue, it must move forward with truth, not contracts. Ethan nods, acknowledging the terms have changed. He does not reach for her this time. Instead, he offers something rarer, a commitment to choose openness even when it costs him control. In the quiet that follows, both understand the revelation has altered the course of everything, and that the decision ahead will define whether their union remains an arrangement or becomes a bond neither of them can retreat from. Morning light fills the penthouse with a clarity that feels earned rather than imposed, and for the first time since the contract was signed, the space feels like it belongs to both of them. Ethan wakes early and finds Claire at the kitchen island, a mug warming her hands, her posture calm but alert as if she has already decided something important. He joins her without speaking, placing the contract folder on the counter between them, the same folder that once promised certainty. Claire looks at it, then at him, and asks quietly what happens now. Ethan does not reach for the papers. He tells her he spent the night thinking about the difference between control and care, about how fear taught him to manage people instead of trusting them, and how she showed him strength without demanding permission. He says he does not want a marriage that exists only in rooms full of witnesses, and he does not want rules that excuse distance. He wants choice, made daily, without leverage. Claire listens, weighing the words against months of restraint. She tells him she will not stay because it is safe or beneficial, that she needs to know he will choose her even when there are no cameras, no boards, no expectations. Ethan nods, acknowledging the terms, then opens the folder and removes the contract. He tears it cleanly down the center, once, then again, until the pages fall apart in his hands. The sound is quiet but decisive. He places the pieces in the trash and meets her eyes, telling her that whatever remains will be built without conditions. Later that day, they attend a brief press conference already scheduled for the company, and when questions turn to speculation about their marriage, Ethan answers plainly. He says his wife is not an accessory to his success, that her judgment and partnership matter, and that any distance people have observed was his mistake, not hers. He reaches for her hand then, not abruptly, not defensively, but with intention, and holds it as he speaks. Claire feels the steadiness of the gesture, the absence of fear behind it, and squeezes back once, a small affirmation that carries its own weight. In the days that follow, routines change. They still work hard, still protect their time, but meals are shared without agendas, conversations unfold without clocks, and the penthouse begins to feel lived in. Ethan learns to pause instead of pulling away, to ask instead of assuming, to accept closeness as something earned through trust rather than avoided through rules. Claire sets boundaries of her own, not from distance, but from self-respect, and finds that being chosen does not require shrinking. At a modest gathering weeks later, no gala lights or press lines, Ethan introduces her simply as his wife, his partner, his equal. There is no spectacle, no performance, just a hand at her back that stays. Claire smiles, not because she must, but because she wants to, and realizes the choice she made to survive has transformed into a choice to stay. The marriage that began as an agreement ends as a commitment, not sealed by paper, but by the daily decision to step closer, openly, honestly, and without fear.